this lecture, we're going to review some key terms about discourse that you'll need for the exercises in this part of the unit. And we're going to introduce a couple of new terms that will be helpful as we analyze literature and cultural context. So as we mentioned earlier in the term, discourse is a cultural conversation about a specific topic. A discourse community is a group of speakers who have certain characteristics in common. So for example, a discourse community could be as broad as all speakers of English. It could be much more narrow, like your family, a group of people who share a common understanding based on systematic principles of communication. A dominant discourse is a really important concept to understand. That's basically the prevailing view about a topic within a discourse community. So for example, in our culture, we might say dominant discourse, it's a dominant discourse that it's really important for everyone to have a cell phone, right? So that might be an example of a dominant discourse. A competing discourse, on the other hand, is a situation where there are multiple opinions or ideas about a topic and they compete for dominance, but no one opinion or discourse emerges as the dominant one. And finally, a subversive discourse is one that represents a non-dominant position on a topic in a discourse community. And a subversive discourse actively works to destabilize a dominant discourse. So that's just a brief review. We've talked about all of those terms before. The new terms that we want to use for this part of the unit are target audience. That is the audience for which the argument being made is going to be most effective. So the people that you have in mind when you're constructing the argument, and you choose those elements to be specifically effective when talking to that group. That's your target audience. And I'm talking about that as if you were the writer, but then think of it also when you're reading something. You can identify who the writer of a text imagines that they're talking to by analyzing the target audience. In what ways are things meant to appeal to certain people with certain characteristics? So that's target audience. And then subtext. Subtext is basically those underlying ideas that are just below the surface. When people say, for example, reading between the lines, another way of talking about that, a little bit more of a technical term for that, is the term subtext. What are those things that are present in the text but not explicitly said? So that's just a brief overview of some of the terms that will be important as we further consider cultural context.